This has been, such an amazing day. We couldn't do any of this without you. And a huge thank you to all of you who have gone through this ride with us. It's been an honor to bring you this programming and shine a spotlight on these incredible people and the work that they do. And this brings us to our final session of the day. A game-changing era, the impact of women in sports. I'm excited to share with you a quick video about our next guest, and I know you got a little bit of a teaser there already because of our glitch. So sorry about that. We want to share with you a quick video about our next guest, Cole Brower, an American sailor and recent world record holder as first American woman to sail solo and nonstop around the world. Cole and our managing partner, Allie McDonald, will then do a fireside chat and lastly be joined by two more amazing panelists for an in-depth conversation about women in sports.
Hey, Cole. You're on mute.
Hi, how are you?
I'm great. Good to see you. And thank you for being here with us today. My guess is after that video, if we were all in a huge conference room somewhere, those of us that are able would be on our feet applauding you and giving you a standing O. So just amazing. Thank you for coming in and being with us here today, and also for joining our Elevate Network community. We're psyched to have you as a member.
Thank you.
I'm totally a fangirl. I followed you on Instagram during your trip and was just amazed at how you kept such a positive attitude through thick and thin through your journey. And we just got to witness your sizzle reel, which looks really good. And we heard a little bit about your journey, but I'm not going to give you your first question about the journey. My first question is, you left shore as Cole Brower, badass American sailor, and you came back 130 days later, Cole Brower, glass ceiling shatterer, social media darling, and a brand, and I think virtually a business. So tell us all, how is that for you?
Yeah, it's been really amazing. I'm in this huge transition zone because I'm learning how to be a human again. I think being out in the middle of the ocean really makes you appreciate every single day and everything that I had and my whole team. And then you come back to this world that's super fast paced and everyone wants you to know exactly what your next steps are. And my next steps when I was offshore was just making sure I didn't fall overboard. So it's kind of a different planet. And so yeah, coming back has been a total whirlwind. I also didn't, to be completely candid, I didn't know that there was so many people that were involved. Of course, I'm watching the followers go up and up and up, but I think, being offshore, you're so busy doing other things, and then you all of a sudden realize that there's this whole network of women, men, children that I've all of a sudden gotten into the sailing world that I would have never even met. So it's been crazy.
And so these days, being back and integrating back into life on ground, how many events like this are you doing on any given day? Like, what is that? It's got to be a little different than your prep to get on the boat.
Yeah, no, it is. It's very, very different. I think in the beginning I was incredibly overwhelmed. I think any person would have been incredibly overwhelmed to come back. And the amount of people that wanted me to do speaking engagements and, come to their kids' bar mitzvah and all the other things. The amount of requests was kind of unwavering. And I was really, really overwhelmed, I think, because I was so used to, my team did a really good job of like protecting me. And now, of course, now I'm back to shore. It's just trying to keep everything organized. Of course, I don't answer my phone nearly as much, and I just put my phone away because sometimes it's just crazy. And when you're so used to being alone, you could just shut off your Starlink and disappear if you were overwhelmed by people. And now I don't have that. It's really weird.
You and I talked a little bit about social media when we had a conversation earlier in the week. And can you share with everyone kind of your thoughts on Instagram and social prior to leaving?
Yeah, so I didn't really like social media before I left. It was more like I had a social media manager who's like, "You're going to learn how to like this," and I was like, "No, I don't really understand the trends and the dances and things," and it was kind of felt dumb to me. And now it's a total tool. It's a really, really important tool, and I wouldn't have gotten that experience unless I actually immerse myself into this creative content world. And I have total respect for people who are creative content or content creators because it's, I mean, it's super fun, but you're easily forgotten, and like, how do you keep this, momentum going so that you can actually use your voice for bigger and better things? But I absolutely fell in love with the social media. It made connecting with people so much easier, and the positive comments from everyone, from women, men, children, was just it made me keep going, honestly.
That's awesome. We also talked before we get into the race and some of your challenges there. We also talked this week about commonalities and issues around gender discrimination and how they take place in all businesses and all arenas. Um, and I would say most of our members and our listeners today are probably not that familiar with the business of sailing. I know I
Mhm.
wasn't. But can you share with us some challenges you've had in your career due to your gender and your stature? You can let everyone know your measurements, um, and
Yeah.
how you've persevered through these.
Yeah, so I'm 5'2". I'm 100 pounds, so I'm quite a small person, and I think I'm a lot smaller in person than I am on my social media. Or at least that's what people have told me when I show up for speaking engagements, and they're like, "Wow, you are ridiculously tiny," um, especially to sail around the world on a 40-foot racing yacht that's trying to kill you. Um,
Mhm.
I think I look even smaller when you put me next to the yacht. Um, but I think that it's so important for women not to look at like stature and size and go, well, I'm just too small. I just can't be a part of this world. Like, the sailing world is very similar to the corporate world. One, because they're almost the same people. Um, so the same people that own the yachts are the same people in the corporate world.
Yeah.
So I feel like they are the same. They're just parallel with each other. And I just happen to be, a boat captain and a professional racer. And so I'm on these boats with men and some women. And I think in the industry, you get oh, you can't do it. You can't, like, you're too small, you're too young, you can't amount to anything because you don't have a legacy name. I didn't come from a background in this sport, and because it's such a traditionalist sport, um, that actually really matters. I think it's starting to change, and maybe with my campaign, we tried to change it because people were like, "Well, we've never seen this girl. Where'd she come from? What's her last name?" And all of a sudden, they were like, "She doesn't have one. She has the resume, but she doesn't have the last name." And I think it's starting not to matter as much because I can still bring, the same, if not more, to the table in the sailing world as someone who has a better last name, that's taller, that's bigger, that's older than me. Um, and I think you can see it just from the other competitors in my race. I mean, they were all men, they were all older. The next age up from me was 10 years older than me. And we raced our boats as hard as we could. Um, I just probably had a little bit more fun, to be honest.
It certainly looks like it by following you. So in your sailing career, as you've worked on various boats, have you ever been passed up for a job or anything because of, not because of your ability, but because of who you are?
Oh, 100%. Um, yeah, unfortunately, there's a lot. There's actually more than I can count. Like, I remember a really specific one. It was right when I was beginning my career as a boat captain, and I had my captain's license, and I was kind of getting my bearings in this industry. And I was walking down the dock, and there was a guy who was there, and he was like, "Oh, I heard that you're a boat captain from one of the other marina guys. I need help delivering my boat." And I said, "Okay, perfect. Would love to. This is what I cost. This is, I need my expenses covered, and this is where I need to come back to. No problem." And then he ended up, like, he texted me probably about 5 days later or something, and he was like, "Oh, by the way, I can't, I can't hire you." I was like, "Why? What's the problem?" And he said, "Well, my wife got word that you are a woman, and she doesn't want me going offshore with a woman." And I remember it really clearly, and I kept thinking to myself, "Well, let me talk to her. Like, just let me talk to her." And he was like, "No, no, no, no." And that was one of the first one. There was two that happened within like a month of each other. That was the first one that happened, and I was like, "Oh, well, that kind of stings, but okay, I'll get over it." The second one was even worse, because the second one happened where I got a job, and I was like, "Okay, I'm really excited about this." And it was to deliver a boat from Maine to New York to Shelter Island. And I did, a whole interview on email, and he was like, "You sound perfect. Your resume is perfect. This sounds great." Um, so I had bought all the provisions for the boat. So as a boat captain, you front a lot of the costs onto your own credit card. And I didn't have that much money. So I fronted all the provisions, and like was getting ready to buy tickets to go to the place to pick up the boat. And he calls me up, and he's like, "Oh my God, um, no, I can't have you bring the boat." And I kept being like, "Why? Why?" And he was like, "No, no, no. I'm so sorry. I'm just not going to have you." So I had all of these provisions, like a couple $100 worth, which doesn't seem like a lot, but it was a lot for someone straight out of college. Like, it was a lot of money. And now I had all this food. And so in about, I don't know, a couple days later, he calls me, and he's so apologetic. He's like, "I'm so sorry. I hired this random guy, and this guy now has run my boat onto the rocks." And I was like, well, that seems dumb. Why? Like, if you told me you didn't need a boat captain, that's why you were letting me go. And he said, "No, I found out that you were a woman." He Googled me, and he told me it was because I was a woman, and because I was, at the time, I think I was 23 or 24, and he just didn't believe that I could do it. And and I ended up, so now he's begging me to take the boat because now he fired this other boat captain. And I'm like, "Okay, I'll take the boat, but my rate has just doubled." And he was like, 100%, "I just need help. I just need help." And so I went, picked up the boat. It was a lovely delivery. I read a book the whole time, dropped off the boat. He bought me lunch at the yacht club, and I grabbed my check, and I told him never to contact me ever again. And that was like, these were my first instances in the industry. And I think a lot of my friends have had these instances and have quit because it's really devastating a lot of times, like mentally. And you do a lot of like crying in your car, which I'm sure women in the business world have done exactly the same thing. They go back to their car, they held it together all day, and then you get back and you cry in your car. And then you leave work and you just hope that nobody sees you.
There's a good story therein on it costing him double for not hiring you, right? You hired someone who wasn't as good. It's the same metaphor to corporate America. If you avoid hiring women or people of color or diverse hires, you risk not being able to be profitable. It's going to cost you money. So
it's going to cost you more money later. And I always tell people in all my speaking engagements, hire a female boat captain. We will do things that are much better for you. We're going to make your boat so much easier to sail, because if we can't sail it, you can't. And we're also a lot cheaper. We just are. Because, for one, all of the arguments that people have told me before, like, "Oh, well, you're so small, you don't need as much food, so I'm not going to pay you as much." I'm like, great. So technically I'm cheaper, so you should hire me.
No, no, no. You're all working towards equal pay across the board. Okay, so let's pivot a little to the actual trip, right? So
Mm-hmm.
you spent 130 days alone on a
Mm-hmm.
40-foot boat in conditions that most of us wouldn't even want to be on a cruise ship in. I am one of most of us. So how did you stay mentally and physically tough enough to not only like attempt it, but to finish it?
I think it's super important that of course, I have moments of like absolute weakness, but in the end, all of these situations that had happened to me for the last 10 years in the industry made me so much more mentally tough. Where I think that a lot of the men, because they haven't had nearly as much adversity,
Mm-hmm.
that they haven't had to fight for stuff. Like they haven't had to fight for money or work or, just entering on the subway without getting groped. Whatever your day of adversity was my 130 days. And changing your whole mindset around it and going, no, this is okay. I'm safe. I'm comfortable. Like I'm in my zone. And just making it, I related it actually recently to like having a child. Like I don't personally have children at this moment, but it's like when women have children, they don't know what that pain is like, or two, what it's going to be like at all. And then you're thrown into it and you're like, and but you don't even have a chance to even think like, oh my God, this sucks. Oh my God, I haven't slept. Oh my
Yeah,
God,
you
my
can't
world
really get
is like,
away.
no. And that's like sailing around the world as a woman, where all these guys are like, oh, I haven't eaten. I don't have time to shave. I'm over here like plucking my eyebrows, like, no, I have to keep going. There is no stopping. There is no like, oh, I'm just not going to work today, because like being a woman, being a mother, that's what it's like. Like I've watched my mother like tirelessly raise my sister and I, and she just like, we gave her hell. We absolutely gave her hell. And she just would wake up every morning and make us breakfast. I don't know why, but she did it.
So we're going to join the panel in a moment, but one last kind of question, and you alluded to some of it, back to the business side of things, right? You didn't come from a legacy boating family, and you're an athlete doing this as your profession and your career. So how do you afford your next thing? Like what's your next thing, and how does that come together?
So right now I am planning a campaign to pretty much bring in money from these larger corporations to then fund this campaign to go around the world. And so the race that I just did was funded by sponsorship money. It's called the Global Solo Challenge. The next race that I'm planning is in 2028, and that's called the Vendée Globe. It's mostly French based, and there really isn't that many international people that are coming into it. And my goal is to be the first American woman to ever race the Vendée Globe. And so it takes a village, it takes a team, it takes a platform, and that's my next goal, is to raise the funds and hopefully go around the world again, solo, nonstop.
That's awesome. Well, thank you for being here for a little fireside chat. We're now going to join the rest of the panelists and talk about our last topic of the day, a game-changing era, the impact of women in sports. Hi, Sophia. Hi, Valerie.
Hi.
Hi.
Welcome. Thank you for joining us.
It's great to be here.
I'm excited. And Co is amazing. I mean, how do we follow that story?
Cole, are you in a library, Cole? Because you're speaking pretty softly.
Oh yeah, I'm at the library in the New York Yacht Club, and I'm like, they're proposing me for this yacht club, and so I'm not technically a member yet. So I'm like,
Cole, don't pluck your eyebrows before they vote.
I know.
Well, I know my panel is very excited to be here, and we're batting cleanup today, talking about women in sports. We are here to hopefully end the summit on a high note. We've had some really great conversations all day, some pretty deep. And the sports, I think we have positive momentum and some nice tailwinds talking about women in sports. But even though our conversation isn't dire, it's still really important, right? Women as role models, women in sports, women gaining equality and equal pay is really, really important. So I'm excited about this topic. So we plan to talk about the economic impact of women in sports. We didn't add the other thing, entertainment, but I'd be remiss to not mention a few names when we talk about economic impact and the power of girls. And those names would be Tay, Bay, and Barbie. So Taylor Swift, Beyonce, and Barbie, everyone saw over the last year the amount of economic impact their concerts and their movies have had. But we're sticking with sports today. And the data is promising, right? Deloitte came out with their most recent report talking about how women elite sports will gross over $1 billion in 2024. And this is a big number. It's the first time we'll go over $1 billion. And Valerie, you'll have perspective on this. But this is 300% higher than Deloitte, the same report, thought that this number would be 3 years ago. So we're seeing viewership up, commercial sponsorship is up. Wasserman, who tells you how many people are watching, has always cited 4% of media coverage goes to women's sports. Today, it's more like 15%. And they're saying the data begs a reassessment of the coverage. So before I go to the panelists and discuss the evolving landscape, I wanted to share a couple highlights. And ladies, I hope I'm not stealing anything from you, but you can always repeat. Women's World Cup viewers in 2023, over 2 million viewers and 25 million streams on BBC. That was up 75% from the last World Cup tournament. Several new pro leagues have started, expansions. I, for one, like the Professional Women's Hockey League, came to Boston this year. Final Four basketball tickets this year, the women's, were more expensive than the men's. And this is a trend. You're seeing this, you're seeing more viewership. And I think a lot of this is the Caitlin Clark and Angel Reese effect, but I think people are just more interested, and you all will talk about that. And then my last favorite fact that I wanted to share before I hand it to my panelists is women's technical abilities continue to improve. Some of you may or may not have seen Chloe Kelly of the England World Cup team. She kicked a penalty kick to take her team to the quarterfinals. That penalty kick was 69 miles per hour. I'm changing that from kilometers because we have mostly an American audience. And for the entire Premier League season, so anyone that follows soccer, that's the creme de la creme for the men. For the entire Premier League season, the fastest men's shot was clocked at 66 miles an hour. So we're seeing great things all over the place, and we're so excited. But as all of you know watching, and all of you on the panel know, we have ways to go before we reach parity. So on that, I'm going to hand it over first to Sophia to talk about herself. Introduce yourself to our audience. Tell us why you love sports, and tell us what you've done in the past and today that give you a really unique perspective. And you do have one.
Thank you. Thank you so much for the introduction. And I'm so glad that you finished the day with this topic. It's so timely because it's all that I talk about. So my name is Dr. Sophia Pertus, and my pronouns are she, her, hers, and ella. I spent the first 2 decades of my career in higher education student affairs, where I had the wonderful opportunity to work at several Division I universities. So my job was to make sure that the athletes, coaches, student athletes had a inclusive campus environment where they could thrive and get what they needed. So I actually got to participate in a few NCAA self-studies that looked at gender equity, diversity, inclusion, Title IX, of course. And it was just great to get on the inside of some of the programs to see like what was happening, what are decisions being made, and definitely seeing inequity from my perspective. And the idea was everyone's trying to do the right thing. And you know, everything was financial. It needed to be set right. And my last role when I was in higher ed was as Dean of Students at Hofstra University. Shout out to Hofstra. And I'm now the Managing Director for Inclusion and Leadership Development at Billie Jean King Enterprises. So it's kind of an interesting trajectory in my role because I started out in higher education. So always going to sport games, always supporting student athletes and trying to see where their journey was going to go. And then now I went to a nonprofit looking at mental health and suicide prevention. As we know, there's such a close connection between mental health and the athlete experience. And then now working on the corporate end of things, just watching the sports industry blossom and grow, and especially in women's sports, and supporting your organizations like the National Women's Soccer League, the NFL, and my love for sports started in the Bronx because I grew up in near Yankee Stadium. So going to baseball games as a kid, we always got the bleacher seats. But now my favorite sport is I have to say tennis, but I'm also a big fan of the women's soccer. I'm going to the Pride game for NY Gotham on Saturday, and I'm thrilled because I got my teenage son to get excited too. So it's been just a thrill to be part of that world and to watch it from the inside and the outside as a fan, but also as a inside scoop. And I play pickleball, but I'm not an athlete at all. So I'm not even going to try to be anything near what Cole is going to talk about, and Valerie, of course, but I dabble in my own little thing.
So, Sophie, I think they started a women's pickleball league, a professional women's pickleball league this year. It's the first one.
Yeah, I won't be trying out. I'm still learning.
They've got open roster spots. They need you.
Thank you, Sophia. And Valerie, are you going to do the robot?
Oh yeah, I promised to do the robot. Good afternoon, everyone. First of all, I just want to give a shout out to the entire Elevate team. This day has been incredible. So anyone watching, like, drop some high fives in the comments for everyone who put this on. It's been amazing. And I'm so excited to be a part of this panel. And Cole, it was great to learn about your story and talk about what I'm most passionate about, which is women in sports. I'm Valerie Tyson. I'm the co-founder and head of strategy and sports for Real Business AI. And I've spent my entire 20-year career working on the brand strategy and agency side of sports. So in the front office, I've worked at the NBA for NBA teams, NASCAR, arena football, the NFL. I've worked a lot in tennis with the US Open, Wimbledon, the Williams sisters, Michael Jordan. So working really across some of the greatest brands, properties, talent, and athletes in the world. And today I'm a part of an incredible team where we build performance-based, AI-driven ecosystems that connect women in business, of which sports is a part of, to more contract opportunity. So Cole, we're going to have to talk. And you heard me right. These are performance-based ecosystems where performance is the metric in sports.
Mm-hmm.
It is also the metric in business. So being able to connect women to more opportunities to earn more revenue is, again, like Cole talked about, like that was like a hurdle for her, because we all know that wealth is power. And so being able to get more money behind women's sports, whether it's a brand, property, or talent, that's what we are all about now. So again, thanks for having us. I'm totally pumped to be here. And thanks to everyone who has made it through the whole day to come join us.
It's an athletic feat to stay on a Zoom from 10 to 4 or 10 to 5 during the
Cole,
day.
did you tell them how to carbo load or anything? Did you tell them how to, keep it going?
Yeah, we'll get the freeze dried out. I'll show
so
you guys
Valerie,
how to make freeze dried.
We're gonna stay with you, Valerie, and talk about, what is the future, right? You study women's sports all day long. What's the future of women's sports look like? What are the key factors that are going to drive growth and equality? And then, how do we get there? What do we have to overcome to get there?
I think to get there, we have to look at the KPIs that are on the trajectory up now. So again, this is an interesting time to have this conversation, because it's been a particularly spicy week in women's sports in terms of media, storytelling, body checks, like all those types of things. But I think really looking at like where women's sports has been on the rise for a long time. It's just talked about more, and we have a long way to go. But it's great to now see there's mainstream media coverage. The digital platforms are evolving, so they can see the evolution of coverage, the growing fan base. It's not overtly women anymore. It's way more balanced than it used to be. And the fact that these women now are leading greater community engagement, they are driving more financial responsibility for the teams, like the athletes themselves. I mean, you can see the Caitlin Clark effect, but we can name women across multiple sports. But this is the most spicy, relevant, example from this week. And we're also seeing increased money in prize money for athletes. Especially in tennis, where I know Sophia is like the future of the sport in pickleball and tennis, but we're seeing equity now starting to come around in the worlds of tennis legislation. There's been huge strides. There's a long way to go. But also those cultural shifts too. Like, we're breaking stereotypes. Young girls now know what athletes can look like, and it's a variety of different women. We've on our team, we've worked with volleyball players who are built much differently than a female football player or a hockey player. Girls now have new role models. I think that is only going to increase girls playing sports and then turning professional, because that was on the decrease. So I think the future is more girls raising their hands saying, I can do that, whatever sport it is. I think the tech advancements will continue. What you're talking about, the soccer goal and rating the speed. Women, they didn't always have the same technical advancements that male teams had. They didn't know the metrics. It was like kind of like cocktail napkin math. And now it's not an afterthought. It's actually part of the conversation. And also the development, what you're seeing now too around other sports like hockey and volleyball, the development of female leagues. Like that's only going to continue to grow. Female pickleball league, you mentioned female volleyball. They even reorganized how the AVP volleyball tour is organized. So I think, and then seeing those athletes as role models and brands, and Nil has opened this up now for future athletes, for future
Yep.
professional athletes. Women athletes in particular, are much stronger and at a much more rapid rate are growing their brands off the field, pitch, court, water, wherever they may be, early to set themselves up for business success. So I think the future, you're going to see the normalization of female sports, the acceptance, and those role models probably transcending, gender even more deeply than we see it today.
I hope you're right. Sophia, and then we'll go to you, Cole.
Well, I think you've heard the numbers, so I don't need to repeat that. The growing number, it's looking very promising, and it's a testament to the investment that's happened. And I will quote our very own Billie Jean King, who said, women's sports is an investment, not a charity, and something that she's always advocated for and has always seen the possibility, has always seen the vision of if women and men are playing and all genders are playing, then everyone should be compensated equally. There's no reason why not. So I think it's great to see that is going to be the future, but we're going to need to get over the obstacles of people not seeing it that same way. And the numbers are bearing. The past few weeks have been a big one for our CEO, Alana Kloss, and founder and namesake Billie Jean King. They won the Chiefs' inaugural New Era of Leadership Award, and one of the exceptional companies really doing some innovation. The Professional Women's Hockey League, recognized by the Sports Business Journal as the sports breakthrough of the year, the first year in the league. So much attention and so much just excitement and possibility for young women who have been playing but just never had a professional league or a place to move on and get compensated. And of course, I have to give a shout out to the captain, Kendall Coyne Schofield of the Minnesota team, who brought up the idea years ago and said, can we move this forward? Can we get this done? And it is done, and there is investment in it. So that's really great. But we already know that the gender pay gap exists. It's real. And the coverage for media is still less than 15%. Systemic biases are still there. And I think while many people have become allies and have become investors, which is the most important thing, I think, there's also a lot of conversation that's holding it back about, transgender athletes and things that are stopping the conversation instead of moving it forward. So I'd like to see change there, and just acceptance and normalization, just like Valerie said. It just should be normal that we see it on TV, that we get the coverage done, and the deals happen in the ways that are much more equitable and lucrative for those playing. But for everyone.
I think, and to plus up, yes, Dan, what you said, I think this week has been a great example where, male players knock each other down all the time and tweet whatever they're going to tweet. But because women do it, they're trying to lead into a stereotype about women. And so instead of the conversation about the play is increased such that now we're checking each other, we're taking people out. Instead of that being the athleticism, we're talking about the after effect, which is it's not going to help propel women's sports at all. And I think that those media narratives need to change.
Cole and I had a very similar conversation about how even when women are trying to support each other or do something together or grow the economy, there's a way that men will find a way to pit them against each other, right? So it's
exactly.
It's been funny watching men cover women's sports. I kind of feel like it's like a version of The Office sometimes. To see the cover, the nuance, and then those female sportscasters, kind of setting the tone and trying to course correct. It's been interesting to watch.
Yeah, I completely agree. I'm constantly called the female sailor. And I finally, at one of my speaking engagements, he was like, so what does it feel like to be a female sailor? And I was like, actually, I think I'm just a sailor. And the whole audience just went oh no, oh no. And I was like, don't worry, I don't bite. I'm just trying to gently correct you. And I don't think that emasculates you. I just think we all can educate each other a little bit more. But it is so interesting to, like, both of your points is that this industry, more than a lot of industries right now, like the sporting world is taking off for female. I know that just from my perspective, we started my campaign and it was 85% of my following was men and 15% was women. And then by the end of the race, I had over 400,000 followers, more than I had started with. And it was 50-50. And so we got a massive chunk of women also coming into the sporting world and going, I don't know anything about sailing, but she looks like she's having fun. And that is something that can translate to other women in other sports, is that if we can get both sides of the population, the men have always been watching sports. So if you get them into women's sports, and then women like to watch other women, you're good. We're making money. That's the way it should be. And that's kind of how, at least for my campaign, I was able to show that both men and women are interested in watching a woman do sporting things. And so it's there. We just haven't figured out a way to really grab onto it and harness it and then make really good money at it. And if we can, I think we can retire, hopefully.
I love it. So what do we see, Cole, staying with you? We mentioned a little bit of the fact that you had 85% male followers when you first started. What role do men and allies and supporters play in advancing this issue? You know, where can they play? I mean, we've all talked about it. They can invest in us. They can be supporters. You know, how do you bridge that gap?
Yeah, I've had this question asked to me a lot, because a lot of people ask, a lot of men ask, well, okay, you're out there, and what can we do as men? And a lot of times I just say, you need to show up. There's one thing to actually support, but there's showing up and actually being, a voice at the table that's not overbearing, not controlling, allowing the women at the table who are actually in charge and in control to have the main voice, but go, okay, let me support, let me put my people, let's rally behind you and be followers. They don't have to always be leaders. We as women have been followers for hundreds of years. We've been very dedicated followers in all things, sports and education and politics. We've always been the supporting actor. Why can we not be the leader and just have the men just being the supporting actor? Just roles reverse for 5 seconds and they'll learn. It's a lot easier for them. They have to do a lot less work. And we as women are probably, this may sound controversial, but we're probably a lot better at it, to be honest.
It doesn't really sound controversial in this, realm here.
I love that. Sounds like a fact, not controversial.
I love it.
Sophia or Valerie, you have any other thing to add here?
I feel like male allies are crucial because a lot of men sit in positions of power and they have the opportunity to create more seats for other people, for other women, to invite women into those rooms. They can use their platforms and their voice and their followings to amplify their voices, to promote equality, to highlight inequities, like calling out, like, the shit like that should be called out, like normalizing and accepting and championing women's sports. They're in positions where they can actually make policy changes and change allocation of resources to actually help support women in their sports. And also like coverage and storytelling and the male role models opening that door to normalizing women's sports. I just think that's like such a foundational piece. And encouraging participation. If you're a coach of a young girls team, like they can play, athletes' careers are being further extended now. Let them know what's possible. So if you coach your daughter's team or your cousin's team or whatever, and they're women, show them what's possible. And at least on the, the kind of the front office side of sports, creating that opportunity for a woman to be an equal to a male in a role. And so you can start to see that organization through a female lens. I think it would solve hundreds of years of systematic problems, not only in business, but sports.
Agreed.
And I think we all know, what it looks like when we see it. And we've all experienced mentorship or sponsorship from men in our careers. The question, Sophie, this may be out of left field, but the question is, how do we make more of them? Right? This is we know what we want to see. We know what it looks like. What are the solutions? And Valerie actually had a very great experience with the person who's considered the greatest athlete of all times. Right? So who how do we get more? You work in D&I. You work in these issues.
I think I'll lean on where we're going. As we know, diversity, equity, inclusion is such a bad word these days because people are thinking, we don't want to create inequity that is meant to create equity, right? So the idea of hearts and minds, we used to say the business case for it is that more, if you diversify more, you're going to make more money. Maybe we can lean on that here as well. The business case of it's just good sense to fund something that is getting more interested, getting more attention. But I also want to lean a little back on the humanity behind some of this and the hearts and minds. As we know, many of these men who are asking to be allies have women in their lives who they care about, and appealing to the idea that don't you want to see a future where everyone can look and see what opportunities are available to them in all realms, whether it's sports, business, education, all of it. And if there's a male that tells me, no, I don't want to see opportunity happen for everybody, I wouldn't be able to be friends with them. I mean, we'd have to have a really good conversation about why and what that looks like and why they can't see that it just makes business bottom line sense. Eventually it's going to happen, and some things need time to grow. So I think there's forgotten history. I love to be a historian, an educator, where I think about some things had to grow, and some people want to see a return really fast, and they say, well, we started the league and didn't make any money and this is what happened. And it's like, well, how did all the leagues start? If you go back historically, I'm pretty sure they didn't all make money right from day one, right? They had to grow it. They started with a few teams and then built from there. I can probably name a few, but I think appealing to the idea of, can we at least get it started? Can we get people in front of television audiences, streaming audiences, because then if they can see it, they can be it. Another Billie Jean King quote. We quote her a lot because she has so much wisdom. She has so much to say about what the vision of the future could look like. And I think that it's a great business sense, but it's also one for our hearts and minds to get behind and just think about it from a practical sense, humanity sense, a future of for all of us.
Yeah, the evidence of the business case is everywhere. I was reading something about companies that invested in the LPGA, and Valerie, you probably know this better than I do, saw a 400% return on their brand equity just by investing in sponsoring women in the LPGA in the last year. So the case is being made itself, and it's kind of a shame that we have to have a business case for people to be allies, but it is the way the world runs. And I think what brings me a lot of confidence and excitement is the younger boys are really into girl sports. They don't care who's playing. They care how interesting the sport is and what's going on. And so I think that is something that is good and bodes well for our future. I know I walked in yesterday, my 10-year-old son was watching women's college softball. He was watching, and he was like all upset over who was winning and who was losing. And I had no idea who was playing. So tiny little study right there going on. Okay.
To your point, though, if you think about it, people who love sports want to watch great sports and watch people perform at the highest level and compete. And so I can't wait for the day when it's not like I'm watching women's basketball. Like, I want to be watching basketball, and people can come by and see what I'm watching or ask me. I'm watching football. It can be coached by a woman or played by women. Like, I think people should have to ask a second question, and I can't wait for that day.
It should feel like the Olympics, right? We turn on the Olympics, no matter what sport is on, it's on. And you're like, I want to watch it. And yeah, there are some sports that are probably your favorite around, certain times, but everyone just is excited of what it took to get there, for those athletes to just get their moment and get their accolades and, their hard work pay off. So we should look at all the sports like that. And it shouldn't matter if it's, a gendered sport or not, what gender is playing. It's like, we are just excited that people are getting to live their dreams.
So let's finish. My last question here is, well, I guess I have two. There was a Supreme Court decision in 2021, and Valerie, you alluded to this earlier, that allows all college athletes to get paid for their NIL, their name, image, and likeness. What does this mean for female athletes? How do we feel about it? Is it good, bad, neutral? And Sophia, you've had a lot of experience in NCAA. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this.
Sophia, go ahead. I'll follow you.
I guess what I can say about it is that the well-resourced programs will have no issue with making sure that, revenue generated goes back to the student athletes. The issue is with the programs that are not as well-resourced and women's sports who doesn't sometimes bring as much of the revenue per se. And I feel like I'm going to go back to systemic issues where things are not publicized as much. They put the games on during times that people can't watch or it's not practical, and they center the men's sports. So I'm gonna be a little biased there, but I'm not in higher ed proper right now, so I can say that. Like, I just noticed it in the scheduling. I noticed it in the way the travel program and schedule happened. But at the end of the day, I think it's back to how are these student athletes contributing to the bottom line of these institutions and to these programs, and are they getting compensated? Because they put in a grind. I mean, not only are they trying to practice, do their sport, work out, they're getting their work done in the academic classroom. So I think that I think it's way overdue. I do see that it can become a popularity contest too. And when it comes to ethnicity and race, there are some discrepancies there too of who gets attention and who does not, who gets demonized in the, I'll try to stay out of the fray of the current WNBA stuff, but there is a different rhetoric that happens around certain athletes over others. So I think if we can look at it and say, let's be as equal as possible here and think of equity, it can happen in a way that works for all. But I have a feeling that it's another area where we need to now pay attention again. Is this happening in a way that is equitable for everyone? And I'm not sure that it is.
And I knew Sophia was going to anchor into that, higher ed piece that I can't, where I work with those athletes. And I've always seen the problem is if the more brands don't sponsor women's sports, ESPN is not going to show it more, and there's going to be less viewership. Like it's cyclical. Like and I sat at one of the largest advertising tables in the world, and they said, "Oh, we're going to watch women's sports for 4 years before we invest." And now that could have been an underserved market they could have stepped into. But now with these athletes having control of their brands and being able to track these brands, it gives women an early start at the business after sports, because it's not if sports ends, it's when. And it allows these female athletes to build their brands, be brand ambassadors. What I wish is that there was a better program to teach these athletes how to do proof of performance and how to create great content that actually helps them build wealth early while they're at this level. And to quote Lizzo, like, it's about damn time these athletes have been getting paid. I mean, it is time now. The schools have been making so much money. Now share it with those who actually sell tickets and hot dogs and refurnish the locker room. So I'm glad to see this. I hope it evolves in a way that is actually productive for these athletes of all communities to be able to make a living from this and to start their business careers early.
Yeah, I think I completely agree. The sailing world has something really interesting because I was NCAA, so I was a varsity athlete under the sailing, category, but we are also ruled by another body, which is the Intercollegiate Sailing Association, and that does not allow sponsorship. So when this changed for all the other athletes, except not for sailors. So sailors will never be able to be sponsored whatsoever. And it's also, I think, an actual systemic issue inside of the sailing world where it just perpetuates the idea of free labor. And that happens all the time in the sailing community where people who have all the money in the universe are like, well, I just don't want to pay because, you're a Corinthian. I mean, I don't want to take up anyone's time, but there is an entire other issue that's under this world where you're considered a professional sailor versus a Corinthian sailor. And there's all these categories and it's all this crazy stuff. So yeah, I think it's complete bullshit and we should just get rid of all of that and allow because I had Costco come to me and want to sponsor me when I was in college, and I'd be like, thank you so much, I can't. And like they couldn't give me anything, literally nothing, could not hand me things, and I couldn't be like, oh, thank you so much, Costco, for giving me fruit. You know, it was nothing serious, but it was. And now with sponsorships, I can take whatever I want because I'm not under that association. But even being in this community, being a professional sailor, you're treated differently because everyone assumes and wants you to be Corinthian and they want the labor to be free. So it's something that I am fighting against majorly. And it's so hard for me to like fight it outwardly at other sports because I am like in the trenches in my own sport. And so go other sports. So happy for NCAA. Congratulations. But we're not there yet, unfortunately for us.
I think it just shows how important advocacy and policies are, how instrumental it is in advancing women's sports. I mean, by addressing these systematic barriers like you're experiencing, you know,
Yeah,
we need to foster environments where female athletes can thrive, not hold them back.
100%.
But a few,
100%.
and not to be Debbie Downer here, but a few of the downstream consequences of this and these laws is that it's almost like the rich are getting richer, right? So big college, because of Title IX, right? The colleges are supposed to treat the men and women's sports equally, but because they can create now third-party booster feeder organizations of money into the athletes, you end up with a system where, you know, the football players, if the third party payer wants the name, image, and likeness of a certain player, they're going to keep them at that school, right? I don't know, Valor, if you have any opinion on this, but it feels like it could have there's some downstream consequences that are happening. And then the second factor here is, and I don't know if my facts are exactly correct, but since this opened up in 2021, it seems like 85 or to 90% of the money for name, image, and likeness is going to the male NCAA athletes.
Well, and I think that's a reflection, it's a mirror to the industry as a whole. Like how when we're showing these games, women's softball, midnight. I saw some tennis at 3 a.m. from France this week. I mean, you know, Coco Gauff's playing at 2 a.m. I'm like, I got work tomorrow. But I think there's a whole underpinning that needs to happen, and we're at the beginning, and I'm glad that it's coming out of a cannon now. It doesn't mean that it's perfect. But if you, again, I think about performance, and I've always like led in my career being the only woman in the front office. It's me against everybody. It's me against me, and it's me against everybody else. And I think at least now those athletes have an opportunity to build a brand to drive revenue. It is an imperfect system. It's been way more imperfect for much longer, and it's going to continue to evolve. And I don't even know if I'll see the probably complete evolution in my lifetime, but at least like it's being called to task. There's a spotlight on it, and the underpinning is starting to wither.
Agree. Okay, we've got a few minutes left. Let's do our quick round robin. We're all here today at the Mobilize Women's Summit to take conversations to action, right? As I've talked about with all of you, we're not here to just have this conversation. How do we take it to the next level? So what advice would you give to our listeners today and watchers on small things they can do to help women in sports, or how can we mobilize this issue forward? Cole, I'm going to start with you.
So I never really liked social media, but I think that us as women, we can really, really push through social media because there's our moms, our grandmothers, our aunts, our uncles, our families are on this platform and other platforms that are out there. I just pick Instagram because that's the platform that I'm on over any other platform. But there is a way that we can, as a community, really get people involved. And like this, like what I did is trying to get non-sailors involved in the sailing community is very similar, I'm sure, to like if you want to bring, you know, non-soccer players into a female soccer community and be like, this is what we want to do, and this is how we want to get more international, or whatever that is their goal. My goal was to make sailing more international and bring people into it and use the American market, since Americans, we have lots of money, we have a big push for sports. Why can't I steal a little bit of the football market into my market? And I think I was able to do it. And so I think that social media is an amazing tool, and we just have to be as authentic and open as possible. And I know, Ali, you and I, we were changing the world in our conversation earlier this week because we weren't afraid to actually speak and say exactly what's on our mind without feeling like we need to censor ourselves. And I think that's super important because everyone's talking about it, but we're just hiding it a little bit, afraid.
So get out there and be loud and be proud.
Yeah.
I like it. Valerie?
I would say there's probably women listening to this today, or maybe men, I'm not sure, male advocates listening to this who may not like sports, but everyone can still impact women's sports, even if you're not a fan. And I would say women are the primary target for all advertising because we are the primary purchases in almost every household in this country. And if we are not the purchaser, we are the primary influencer of all those purchases. And so for those brands supporting women's sports, like sponsor, help them, support them, buy their products, connect with them on social media. And for those brands that you love, that you wish would take the blinders off and invest in women's sports, I think be vocal about it. So as women, we have the power to help be advocates for this entire industry. So I say it starts with us.
And Valerie, I would add on to that. It's something I've been thinking about is and Cole and I talked about this, just because it's a women's issue doesn't mean it should be a nonprofit, but we could start an advocacy group or with big funders that then do the media, where you have all these women that are saying, this is what we want to see. And guess what, advertisers, if you show us this, we will buy your products. We hold the purse strings, so we almost need like this big pool of money to be able to get that campaign really going.
Ali, there's something really cool that just happened at the upfronts in New York 2 weeks ago, where they put together upfronts for women's sports and for female brands, like just completely focused on women. And I said for years, like when someone can unlock that magic, to your point, like that's what's going to really help that. And so I think that's just, we're scratching the surface, but I think what we can do while that starts to evolve and those media markets actually become, more aware of these underserved markets and how much they can drive their brand performance, I think we also have buying power. And these brands don't want to lose our business. So how do we kind of vote with our dollars and support women in sports and the brands that love them?
Awesome. Sophia, let's end with you.
Okay, end it with me. I agree with what everyone already said, but I would say each of us has to look at our own sphere of influence. Where do we have impact day to day? I think both Cole and Valerie have said this, but things like watch the games, turn it on, stream. Let's make sure viewership is there. Buy tickets to games, whether you go or not, but go. Absolutely try to expand the way that you watch sports by opening it up to the young people in your lives to, again, normalize it. Donate to organizations like the Women's Sports Foundation, who is celebrating their 50-year anniversary. It was founded by Billie Jean King again, with a $5,000 check 50 years ago. And the Billie Jean King Foundation and other nonprofits that are trying to increase opportunity, especially for young people who don't have access to equipment, who don't have access to fields and other opportunities to play. And then finally, advocating for policy changes. There's a lot of structural policies that we've been watching for a long time that we have just never said anything or haven't spoken up about. And now that we know what they are, we can use our power and our influence to speak out of them. I think we remember Sedona Prince famously put it out there on social media. Look at the discrepancy here with the gym. And it was funny at the time, but it was not funny at all. No. And so much changed after that, where people are paying attention. And as embarrassing as it was in the moment, it was something that brought it to light. And it was like, oh, we were so used to this for so long. No one spoke up. And then they did. So if each of us can do the same thing and bring to light some of the things that we see, I think that's important. And finally, mentoring the young people in our lives. That's the biggest sphere of influence we have. Our own homes, the young people who will normalize that women's sports are here to stay, have never gone anywhere, have always been here, and should be treated equally, financially and in viewership and support.
And Sophia, if we don't hold each other accountable, we're complicit. So you're 100% right. We need to hold each other accountable and be loud about it.
Absolutely agree.
And can you get Cole and I? Cole, I'm going to speak for you, but Sophia, we need to talk after this about getting in Billie Jean's next Elf commercial. I wanna whack some tennis balls into the boardroom. So
You don't
we
have
got
to
to
wait
talk
to be in
about
a
that.
commercial. You could do that already in your sphere of
Yeah,
influence.
yeah. I love I could not love that campaign more, and how that brand leaned into women's sports, and the fact that Billie Jean's at the center of it is like perfection. So
It's brilliant.
it's amazing.
Well, this has been awesome. Thank you so much to my panelists, Sophia, Valerie, Cole. Obviously, I think our audience could tell we had a lot of fun prepping for this and had a lot of fun today. And so I thank you. And now you all have just me to thank you and close out the day. So I want to thank all of you who spent all of the day with us or any part of the day with us. It was certainly an inspiring and elevating day. I want to thank all of our amazing speakers and panelists who really showed their authenticity, vulnerability, expertise all over the place. It was really, really quite impressive. To our sponsors, we're super grateful. And we're grateful to you not just for your money. Oh, there you are. Not just because of your financial support, but because of your unwavering support of diversity. And we all know that supporting DE&I and diversity is not as easy as it once was. You support your women team members, not only because you know it's the right thing to do, but you know that being intentional about diversity is vital for long-term sustainable business. So we appreciate you and we applaud you for sticking with us. Thank you to my Elevate team members, this small, mighty, passionate group who puts on this event each year. It's such a powerful event. We saw so many connections today. I thank the team. They're going to sleep well tonight. I want to thank Janet Hansen. Many of you that are still watching, I'm sure, know Janet Hansen, and she was the founder of this organization 27 years ago. She's the spirit that keeps it alive. Janet will do anything for any woman at any time, and she's really been brilliant about the way that she's helped build out this network, both locally and virtually. So thanks to Janet Hansen. She's going to kill me, but I'm just going to do a little plug and ask all of you to look at her books. She's got 2 published books and they're awesome. So today we heard amazing stories. We got great ideas and tips on how to bring these issues forward and mobilize. Let's not lose this momentum. At Elevate, we cast a huge net. We welcome all women at any parts of their career, any stage of their career, those of you that maybe want to off-ramp, or those of you that are coming back into the workforce. We welcome you. We'd love to mobilize with you all year, so a warm invitation to those of you that aren't Elevate Network members to please join us. And for our long-term community of members, and so many of your names I saw in the chat today, chatting and talking and cheering on our panels and our chapter leaders. We have almost 30 chapters around the world. I saw a group of ours from Dubai today, New York. We have them all over the world. Our chapter leaders, we appreciate you and we see you. A little heart for all of you. So that's all it is for me. Thank you for attending the 8th installment of Mobilize Women, and that's the ball game, folks.